welcome to the Ethan Allen Homestead Museum, our free Sunday lecture for October 2024. I'm so glad you all came today. We want to thank our sponsors of this event. There are three of them: M&T Bank, North Country Federal Credit Union, and AARP of Vermont. And the museum's closing for the season really soon, so I don't have a whole lot of future events that are going to happen, but there's one. On Friday, we're having our first ever spooky story time. I'm going to be telling scary stories in the Ethan Allen house by the fireplace. We have limited seating, because you know how small that house is. We have limited seating, so you have to buy your tickets in advance. Go to ethanallenhomestead.org and look at the online store there and buy your tickets now, because we have limited seating and they're selling out fast. All right, and if you'd like to know more information about Homestead happenings, we have a printout there on the table there with the free literature. You can take one of them home with you. All right, some of you may have heard and seen news stories on the television about how we were robbed last Monday night. Somebody broke in through the preschool and robbed the museum. They broke open our donation box. We had a beautiful handmade donation box in the shape of Ethan Allen's house with a little slot in the front. They threw it on the ground and broke it into pieces and took all the money out. We lost about $500 in cash and some electronics. So we're trying to recover for that. Now, a lot of you have made a donation as you were coming in, so you're good. But if you didn't, and you're going to eat some of our maple cookies, which are delicious, you know, put a little extra in there, just for the Ethan Allen Homestead Museum. We've had some bad luck, and we would appreciate it. We're also trying to fix up Ethan Allen's house, which had sustained some water damage, and so that's a costly project. All right, let me introduce our introducer, who's going to introduce the speaker. Her name is Maida Townsend. And she's a relatively new member of the board of directors at the Ethan Allen Homestead Museum. And I don't know too much about her, but I learned, and she told me. She's been, for over 40 years, she was a teacher with Vermont Public Schools. She taught French. For 10 years, she was a state legislature representing South Burlington in the Vermont House. And she's currently an active volunteer for a number of organizations, which I'm not going to list all of them, but Age Well is one, Vermont Refugee Resettlement Organization is another, and our favorite, which is the Ethan Allen Homestead Museum. So let me introduce you to Maida Townsend.
Thank you, well done, yes? So, we will hear today about the Battle of Cedar Creek. We will hear today about the Battle of Cedar Creek. Is this best?
You don't have to get that close.
Don't have to get that close. Right here? Okay. And that battle took place October 19th, 1864. So we're just one day past. At that battle site in Virginia, as you can see right here, there stands proudly and prominently one of our Vermont historical marker signs. And you can also see right here, and I've been there twice, I've seen with these own two eyes, it's still looking absolutely just as beautiful as it did the day it was unveiled in the Cedar Creek Room at the Vermont State House. And our speaker today will help us understand the link, the importance of this battle at this field, why it merits this marker in Virginia. He will help us understand the link between the Virginia battle and our Vermont history. Our speaker is Mike Sewells. He's a retired Vermont teacher. Several of you know him, I think. And he was not a teacher of history. However, in 2015, he moved down to Civil War territory. He moved down south to, was it North Carolina? Yes. North Carolina and Virginia. And he became enthralled by the Civil War history. And he immersed himself in its study, and he even served for 2 years as a docent at the battleground site in Virginia. That's all I'm going to say. He will take us the whole rest of the way. And it's an incredibly moving and important story, which he is going to relate to us. So thank you for being here.
I'm not sure about incredible moving, but that's okay.
We'll tell you when you're done.
Yeah, I've heard that before. You know, it's exciting that just standing here and there's a gentleman here, Tim, and his great-great-great-grandfather fought for Vermont 8th. And what's fascinating with the Civil War, it's amazing how many folks that you run into that has ancestry related. It's just really cool because Vermont 8th, there's a monument, we'll talk about that, very important part of this battle. And Tim, thanks for sharing that, and that's really cool. That's really neat. Okay, welcome to the Cedar Creek presentation. Welcome to Ethan Allen Homestead. This place is beautiful. I've been on a tour here. It's along the river. If you're here or if you're watching, you need to come down here. You need to take a tour, check out the Abnaki Gardens, check out Ethan Allen Homestead, and check out the New Hampshire Grants. Thank you. I want to thank Tom Sharpley and Angie Grove, director here, for helping me. Also, John Devino for helping me to make this thing come about. Cedar Creek, what is this battle about? You know, what is it about? You know, Bruce Canton's written a ton of books in the Civil War. This book was written probably in 1960. How many pages are dedicated to Cedar Creek? You're right, 1. Why? What? You got to be kidding me. What about this place? As you heard, I moved to Carolina for a while. I know everything about Fort Fisher, the Civil War down there. That was kind of cool. But then we moved to the Shenandoah Valley. Shenandoah Valley was quite an interesting place. You know, high school in Essex, I read 1 book. Now I'm reading 2 books every week for the last 5 years. I'm just fascinated with this kind of history. 5 years ago, I had no idea whether Battle Creek was a place where they made cereal. I had no idea what it was. So this battle, just when I did tours here, I learned about the connection. It was just incredible that I was on the very grass, looking at the very mountains and the river, and as a lot of soldiers, perhaps 40,000 fought. But I got my start here at the Belle Grove Plantation. You have to go here. You might get the Mike So's discount if you're really nice. But I've got some brochures here about the place. This is where the Battle of Cedar Creek occurred, okay? And at this place, I was a tour, went on a tour, listened to this gentleman by the name of Guy Young. He was fascinating. What he knew, what I did not know, just turned me on. So I asked the director, Karen Lace, there at the Battle of Cedar Creek, and I started reading everything. And the folks, the soldiers that would come in, the people that came on tours, people like Tim, a gentleman, Stephen Ramser, who passed away as a Confederate general. I spent an hour and a half in the room where he died. People were asking me, like, where was his head? Where was his feet? What was he looking at? I mean, these people were just fascinated. I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff. So this place got me started. I started to learn a lot about this, was a docent there for a couple of years, and it really helped me out. Also in the Shenandoah Valley, just for what it's worth, there's 1,000 battlefields. I mean, you're kidding me. And you go on these tours with these authors, and you're learning about how they're all kind of connected. And I think 75% of the battles occurred within 50 miles of our house. I mean, how great is that? I'm a guy that used to train, do marathons, World Cup skiing, all this other stuff. Man, this stuff's much more important to me than, and I dropped everything. I just started reading, and people were like, Mike, what is the matter with you? You know? At Belle Grove, Dr. William Selfridge was another gentleman who connected the Battle of Cedar Creek with Belle Grove. A walking encyclopedia. You know, I just learned so much from him. I don't know if somebody, I went to the national conference at the Civil War in Stanton, Virginia last year. There are a lot of people who know a lot of stuff, I'll tell you that. This gentleman, Scott Patchen, I met him a number of times. I don't know if you're familiar with him in the Civil War. He knows about every battle in the Shenandoah Valley. If you're a descendant, I don't care if you're Virginia 13th, North Carolina 8th, he knows where that battle, where you were, what time of day, probably what you were eating, and that would be his first question at every battlefield. That was his first, who is descendants? Amazing gentleman, but he's quite an author. Again, one page, 1960, a whole book, okay? And there are many people like him. Also, Addis Walker, he's from Middlebury, wrote a book about the Civil War, the Vermont Brigade, which was Regiment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 11. He wrote about that. He wrote right after the battle, 1869. Incredible story from his point of view. He was a member of the 11th. Jonathan Noyes, he takes diaries of soldiers and integrates that into the Battle of Cedar Creek. Incredibly knowledgeable person. He also has Fisher Hill, a number of other battles, but another author who I really admired. And this person here, Howard Coffin. Well, first of all, Howard Coffin got to hold his book high because I look up to him all the time. This gentleman here is incredible. There's nobody more passionate, enthusiastic, knowledgeable about Vermont's connection with the Civil War. Also, for those of you that are old, Across the Fence?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, how many times have you seen him on Across the Fence? And he's certainly not talking about the fence. But he's a remarkable author, incredible. He knows, like I say, I kind of look up to him. Also, when you go to the Capitol, there's the Cedar Creek Room. It's kind of funny, because when I was a docent there, it's like, did you know in Vermont they have the Cedar Creek Room? Really? Yes, I did. But David Schultz, a great guy there at the Capitol, he, I just brought this because the Battle of Cedar Creek, the portrait of the Battle of Cedar Creek. People walk by there, and when I was there with David, he just had me hang out there all day, and I was giving tours or answered questions. But that Battle of Cedar Creek, it's in the state capitol. It must be pretty important. And the gentleman that did the portrait, Julius Scott, he's from Johnson. I said, I got to go find his house. So if you go on Route 15 towards Johnson, there's a blue house on the left, and there's a plaque there like that. And there's some guys working on the house, doing sawing and whatever they do. And I said, wow, this is really an important house here. And he didn't have a clue about anything. So I shared with him who this gentleman was. By the way, he was part of the Vermont Regiment 3. He was 15 years of age going into the battle. He was a fifer. And you listen to, music. Music was a big form of communication. And when I was at Fort Ticonderoga a few weeks ago, this woman was dressed in yellow. I said, what are you dressed in yellow for? She goes, that way people can see me because I got to talk to people through my music. So the fifer was important. He was also a Medal of Honor recipient in the Civil War at Lee's Mills down at Warwick, where we brought people across. So he's quite a distinguished person. Vermont 8th, okay, if I can do this without knocking anything over. That's the Belle Grove Mansion. Folks, every one of my tours started right there. Every tour. I get goosebumps because there's so much happened there. So much happened right there, And I would welcome people, and there are bullet holes, cannonball strike here, bullet holes up there. We did talk about enslavement. There were 284 enslaved folks there. And Jefferson had a big influence on building this. This was built by the Heights. I don't know if you ever heard, well, you have James Madison. James Madison's sister, Nellie, built this place. And so we were very connected with Madison, Jefferson, and Adams. Incredible manor house. But that was part of the tours. The Battle of Cedar Creek was part of it. So it tended to, and again, right there.
Is that on the grounds?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Many people call the Battle of Cedar Creek the Battle of Belle Grove. And there's the picture. Now, one way of describing that picture, folks, is these are ordinary people doing extraordinary kinds of things. If you can see the portraits and the faces, you can tell this Battle of Cedar Creek, it's a battle. Every one of these folks have a mom or a dad or brother or sister. Everyone's attached to somebody. This isn't a glorified, 2-1, we're winning. It's a serious thing that happened, that people dedicated their lives to this. And this picture, when you go to Cedar Creek, or if you go down to Belle Grove, it really captures the essence of this as quite a battle. People are putting their lives in the line. Vermont 8th. Vermont 8th, who's familiar with Vermont 8th? Just curiosity. Wow. Okay, thank you. Vermont 8th. I am not a military gentleman. I had a hiking club, and one of my friends was a colonel in the Army, and he would hike like this, right? You know, and so I learned through him that the Army is actually organized. Thank you for your service. The Army is actually organized. Not that I didn't think. They're like regiments, and we talked about the regiment 8th. They're like brigades, okay? And then there are divisions, and then there's corps, and then there's the Army. So they have it organized so that if something happens, the next one steps up. They know what's going on. So the Vermont 8th was a regiment, all right? The 8th had 3 other regiments with it. It was New York 160, Connecticut 12, and Pennsylvania 47. It's funny, I can just say that and you would believe me. Yeah. Okay, Google it, I know this. And the 8th went in. And the 8th, I'll talk about the 8th a little bit later. Incredible monument. I used to work out somewhat. This was on top of the hill, so I would see it sometimes about 20 times a day. But it was pretty interesting. Jeffords was part of getting that there, and also Howard Coffin, when he used to go see that, it wasn't on national park territory, so he had to buy maple syrup, give it to the owner of the house, say, can I go in your backyard and look at that? And that's the way that actually worked. Also,
So where is that monument again?
it's in Middletown, Virginia. And if you go to Cedar Creek, if you go to Belle Grove, it's across Route 11. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. It's just a 5-minute walk from Route 11 on the state park. Another person here, my wife's great-great-grandfather fought for Vermont Cavalry under George Custer at the same battle. And we know that because it says it on the back of his picture. So again, here I am, my wife's family, I'm on the grass, I see the mountains, I see the river, I see the road, and that's exactly what he saw. Another picture of Belle Grove. I'm not getting money from Belle Grove for this, just to say, but just beautiful. You look at Addison County, you take Lake Champlain out of the picture, put the Adirondacks, put the Green Mountains there, put the Otter Creek there, put Snake Mountain Range, that's that. You know, it's a beautiful, absolutely, I say to myself when I'm there, I'm like, look what I'm doing. This is so great, you know. And people, the Civil War folks come in and like, where do they go? They come here, they go to Antietam next, Harper's Ferry, Gettysburg, Bull Run, go back home. And that was the common thread. People, yeah, we're going to Antietam. Yep, Antietam is quite a place. 28,000 in 12 hours, pretty amazing. But I was this, we won't talk about them yet. But also for Vermont's connection, there were 21 medals of honor, and 5 of them went to Vermonters, okay, which is pretty exciting. William Wells, just to say quickly, he was part of the cavalry. His pictures, statues in Battery Park, Borden Lake Cemetery in Lakeview, where he's passed. I think he was the president of every single company in Burlington back in the, he was with St. Paul's Church, Champlain Transportation Gas and Light Company. Quite a gentleman who fought with Custer, who was a Medal of Honor in Gettysburg. Right. Shenandoah Valley, this is part of it. Very interesting. I thought the authors of books down south, they don't know directions. I mean, they're not really that smart. And all of these authors of all these books I read, they talk about going up the valley and down the valley. If I'm going to the Northeast Kingdom, folks, I'm going up. I'm not going down. Well, in the South, it's the other way. I realized it was me and not the authors. When you go up valley, you're going south. And that's because the Shenandoah River runs from south to north. So I had to get used to that because I thought the soldiers were always going the wrong way. Like, what are you going that way for? You should be going the other way. But I realized it was actually me. In the Shenandoah Valley, from this porch right here, the porch. I like the other picture just because I like it. The porch. You're looking south. You're looking south. The Blue Ridge Mountains are over here. Washington, Richmond, okay, Blue Ridge. A couple gaps with the railroads going through Lynchburg, Manassas Gap, a couple other gaps. And then you have the Alleghenies here with West Virginia, all right? In the middle you have the Shenandoah River, which I have paddleboard hundreds of times, up, not the whole river, it goes all the way up to Harper's Ferry to Potomac, right? You have the Valley Pike. The Valley Pike is Route 11, which follows kind of 81, and that was a macadamized road. Great for moving troops and great for moving supplies. Back in the 1770s, when this was built, it was very important to get supplies in and out. The Shenandoah Valley, you had Harper's Ferry way up here. Down south, you had Lexington, Stanton, about 170 miles south. That comprised of the Shenandoah Valley. The Shenandoah Valley was not a major theater of war for, I got this at Belgrove. It wasn't a major theater. In '62, Jackson was down there. Jackson ran circles around the Union Army, okay, down at Port Republic and Cross Keys in '62. And that's about all that really kind of happened there. In '63, Lee used the Valley Pike to get to Gettysburg. They didn't know the battle was going to be in Gettysburg. It's just 10 roads met there, and that's where they had it. Lee, on '63, coming back, he had to go through the Valley Pike. The Valley Pike was a toll road. That meant people had to pay to maintain it. So the question that you would ask, of course, is would Robert E. Lee stop to pay tolls for 40,000 soldiers? Obviously, he had easy pass, and they just kept going through, okay? But Lee used that as an escape place. The Shenandoah Valley was a diversion. See, much of the war happened to the east, in Richmond, Washington. It was a diversion. What they did is they sent Stonewall out there with 10, 15,000 troops. The Union put 40,000 out there because they couldn't figure out what he was doing. But it took 40,000 away from Petersburg and Richmond. 40,000, 15,000 for Stonewall. If you look at the Shenandoah Valley, it runs, southwest. So it's a good tactic for the Confederates to come up because it's at the back door of D.C., which I'll talk about in a little bit. It goes away from Richmond. So the Union's always afraid that the Confederates would come up and attack. So they had to watch out or come around behind. So it was a diversionary attack that the Confederates used very well, and the Union just couldn't figure it out. I mean, Shields couldn't figure out. Fremont, who knows where he went. Hunter, he didn't know what he was doing. Sigel, he didn't know what he was doing. I mean, it was until Sheridan came that actually something happened in the Shenandoah Valley. So that was '62. In '64, things started to happen. And '64, you had a New Market battle, May '64. You had Francis Sigel, he didn't bring the rest of his troops. And Breckinridge, a little story about him, he's Kentuckian, okay, I'll tell you a little bit about him, a little bit. He won the battle the Confederates won the battle in New Market. So the North is saying, wait a minute, Bull Run, 60 days, it should be over, right? Because they had picnics, right? They had picnics down there to watch the battle, right? The first battle? Hey, little did they know, the North was sick of the battle. They were losing so many soldiers, so many more than the Confederates, so many. And Lincoln was up for re-election, right? So this became, Lincoln was saying, we got to win somewhere. You know, we won it at Vicksburg, we won it at Gettysburg, we won it, but the North is saying, we got to get out of it. We're losing way too many. I mean, Vermont had, 37 soldiers and 6,000, 1/6 of the Army passed away. Pretty amazing stat. So Sigel goes to Belle Grove, front steps right here. And Grant says, you know what, you're done. Hunter walks up the steps, says, see you later. So Hunter gangs up with Crook. Crook's not a crook, it's his name. Okay, so that happened. The Crooks happened on this day in St. Albans, the day of the Battle of Cedar Creek. Those were crooks that robbed the banks. This is not what we're talking about. Some people confuse the St. Albans raid with this, but it's very different. But it happened the same day.
Same day.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 banks. That's the way it goes. So Hunter becomes in charge. He goes down to Piedmont, Virginia, small battle, wins, goes down to Lynchburg. Lynchburg was a travel hub for the Confederate Army. Remember, the Shenandoah Valley was a breadbasket. How did Lee's troops eat? They ate from the Shenandoah Valley. What did Thomas Jackson say? Jackson said, Virginia goes, Shenandoah Valley goes, Virginia's gone. So the Shenandoah Valley was really important for the Confederate soldiers. He goes down, Jubal Anderson Early. I throw these names around, but He was part of Lee's down in Petersburg, and he sends a third of his army, the Second Corps, up to the Shenandoah Valley, and they wipe out Hunter. What does Hunter do in his brilliance? The Union commanders, they were like, it could have been me probably. They didn't know what they were doing. Hunter and Crook, where did they go from Lynchburg? They went over the Alleghenies to West Virginia. Who is in the Shenandoah Valley? Nobody. Jubal Early says, you know what? Whew. What did Lee tell me? Wipe the Union Army out and not take over Washington, get close to Washington. So he comes up to Monocacy, and he has a battle with Lew Wallace, who was the author of Ben-Hur, and he wins the battle there. It's hot, and people are dropping with heat stroke right and left. Grant says, what is going on? How can this happen? He sends the 6th Corps and the 19th Corps up to Washington. The Washington soldiers are all green soldiers. They have guns, but they don't know what to do with them. So he comes up for the 6th Corps, and they repulse Jubal Early out of Washington at Fort Stevens. He moves out towards Cool Springs. Been to the battleground 100 times. My wife and I walk there all the time. It's great. It's a great thing. Plaques all over the place. It's on the Shenandoah River, and that's where Thoburn got caught on an island. And the Union didn't use their cavalry. Cavalry are eyes and ears. They didn't use them, so they didn't know they were there. The Confederate Army was like, boy, they moved them back. But they kept going. They kept going. And Jubal Early goes down to Kernstown. This is July. He wins a big battle at Kernstown, Battle 2. Kernstown, again, 5 miles from our house. Winchester changed hands 72 times, 6 miles from our house. I went to these museums, like they all knew me after a while. So, hey, Mike. But it was amazing what happened. So what happens after that? Well, Hunter, I forgot to say, the Battle of Newmarket, who fought in that battle? Somebody's never fought in a battle. The Vermont Virginia Military Institute, the kids from the classroom came out in that battle. All right? Hunter didn't like that. Hunter wasn't well liked in Shenandoah. Believe me, he burnt down the governor's home, John Letcher, in Virginia. So now you have John Chamberlain. You have let's give me a thought. McCausland burned down Chambersburg. Just got it mixed up a little bit. He burns down, in late July, he burns down Chambersburg. Grant is saying, Lincoln's saying, wait, we lost at Kernstown. We lost at Newmarket. Early's on the back store of Washington. We got somebody burning a Pennsylvania city down, $500,000 ransom. You'd think the North would take the money, right? But all of a sudden, we got a major problem. So Grant, it's August now, and he decides to do what? There's 4 armies in the Shenandoah Valley. The Army of Susquehanna, the Army of Middle, the Army of West, and the Army of Washington. He moves into one army called the Middle Army. And Sheridan takes charge of that. Sheridan is, get Early out, waste all of Shenandoah Valley. We don't want anybody in there. Direct orders. Okay, direct orders. And Sheridan's a fighter. Sheridan's a fighter. He's young, he's 33, but he's a fighter, he's proven it. They think he can do it. Jubal Early, much older, but Jubal Early had a sense of humor. He could swear. He was called my old man by Lee. He could swear at Lee, but John Breckinridge says, hey, Jubal, in Virginia, there's so many first families in Virginia. What's this idea? So he says, Breckinridge, he's vice president, he says, all the second families, they all went to Kentucky. Bad joke. All right, so. They're burning. I'm probably talking way too much. Third Battle of Winchester. All right, Third Battle of Winchester. This is a true story. Sometimes I go on with stories. This is a true story. What happened here was an amazing thing, according to Jonathan Noales. And I've done a lot of research in this too. Grant says, I am coming to see you, Sheridan. You are doing nothing. You got to do something. So Grant, Sheridan, and Crook, 19th Corps, they said, what are we going to do to try to do something? They know this Quaker lady, 20 years old, Wright. Is anybody familiar with Wright in law, Thomas Law? Pretty interesting story. He says, we got to get her to get information about Jubal Early's army. We want to know how many, where are they, and any resources they have. Sheridan has no idea. Crook has no idea. So Crook's army knows this gentleman, this enslaved individual, Thomas Law, and they get him. They ask him the questions. They write on a piece of paper these questions, put it in a pillbox, and he puts it in his mouth. So that when we ask him, he can swallow it. All right? He says, we need to find out the answer to these questions. Well, Wright was a Quaker. Oh, we don't hurt people. We don't have this stuff. But her mother said, yes, you need to help out. So she, 2 days prior to this, there's a Confederate soldier who's being taken care of, sees Rebecca Wright, who's in her garden. She's 20, and she's 20, just to say she was 20. And he goes to talk to her, the soldier, about the Confederate. He tells her everything. He tells her everything. This wasn't prompt or anything. So Grant, he's really ticked off. If my boss came to me and said, hey, meet you at 2 o'clock and said nothing else, I'd be ticked. So Sheridan's concerned. Sheridan knew everything. Grant came, and he said, and he wouldn't let Grant talk. Sheridan said everything, and Sheridan said, Grant said, I want you to go in. Go in. And they won the battle, third battle of Winchester. Imagine this. Imagine 7,000 cavalry members attacking you from across the field. 7,000. So they didn't have a chance. Okay? 2 days later, went down to Fisher Hill. Been there 100 times too. I could talk forever about that Fisher Hill. Same thing happened. Jubal Early was up on Fisher Hill. They flanked him, and who were the soldiers that went up the hill? The West Virginians, who are the mountaineers. Okay, oh, thank you. 30? It wasn't cut, it means you talk too much. But the thing was, they went up and flanked them. That was over. What does Sheridan do after the Battle of Fisher Hill? He pushes Jubal Early down to Lexington, Waynesboro. Pushes. Burns the whole valley. 90 miles. Burns every farm, every mill, all the animals in the fall. Burns it all. Grant said, you got to get this war over with. Didn't kill people, sort of, but that's what he did. That's the burning. Sheridan couldn't go back to Virginia for about 30 years. Just saying. Hunter never stepped back in Virginia again. By the way, Jubal Early and Lee, both of them did not want to succeed from the Union. But when Virginia went, they both went. But interesting. So now they burn the valley. Okay. They go back to Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek, Belle Grove. Belle Grove is the headquarters for the Union Army. Why? Why? It's a beautiful place. No. This is Belle Grove. This is Cedar Creek. These are bluffs. This is a great position to be in because your defense has to come across the river and then up a hill to get there. That was Fremont's, Sigel's, Hunter's, Sheridan, Hope. Hope was there. That was their headquarters. Again, I'm on that very ground where that really happened. See you later. Oh, man, it just touches me. So the Union is saying, Union's like, you know what? This battle is absolutely over. There's no, do you think Jubal Early's army, do you think they're coming north? No way. Yes way. They come up 14,000 soldiers. The Union has 32,000. In the beginning, 40,000 soldiers for the Union. 14,000, Jubal Early. The Confederates always fought with much less numbers, always. And for Jubal Early to attack this place with 14,000 soldiers, 31, and to go up, they crossed the river 2 times, North Fork, 2 times at night. They had 3 columns attacking at the same time. Never happened in any Civil War battle ever except Chancellorsville. Absolutely, and that was Stonewall, and he was late. Absolutely amazing what happened. Here's the Union. Here's the 114th, somebody in New Hampshire or whatever. He says, the confidence that permeated the majority of the rank and file of the Army of Shenandoah, which is the Union. On the night of October 18th, probably no army turned into its blankets with more perfect feeling of security than which possessed Sheridan's troops on the night of the 18th. There was perfect confidence that Early had been gloriously whipped. I gotta move on because I gotta get to the battle. But they knew it. They were sleeping in their tents, writing home, we'll be home, da 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 da. Well, I'll make it really quick now. Jubilee climbs up on Single Knob. Here's Single Knob. Been there 100 times. That's Jedidiah Hotchkiss, Stonewall Jackson's cartographer, map maker, and J.B. Gordon and Evans up there with a few other brigades, and they're scouting Cedar Creek, Belle Grove. They can see troops, they can see cannons, they can see roads, they can see numbers, they can see flags. Jubilee says, we are going to attack. It's like, you gotta be kidding me, we can't attack. You gotta be kidding me. They go up, they say, okay, you are the, Shenandoah Valley, okay, I'm at the Belle Grove here. You have the right side of the Union Army is up in the air, Army term. It means everything's, you can see them coming, so not gonna attack there. William Payne, cavalry general from Confederate, he's gonna go at Sheridan, he's at Belle Grove. He's not there. Gordon says we're gonna take 7,000 troops to flank this side. 7,000. They do it at night. 7,000 here, 4,000 scattered here. They attack at the same time, 4:30 in the morning. The Union can't believe it. There's nobody would do that to us. So Rosner is either a cavalry guy, he and Custer are great friends. He takes some prisoners from Vermont 4th and Vermont 11th over here on the right side, and he quits. And Custer's like, I'm quitting. He's dispersion to, he caused havoc there and make everybody go over there. The J.B. Gordons, Pegram, and Ramser, all over here, they attack the flank. They're getting crushed. 600 Union members in Thoburn's brigade are gone within 20 minutes. They're crushed. And they're running to the Corps 19th. Here's Corps 8, West Virginia's Corps 19. The 6th Corps was behind the manor. So these Union members are running to Middleton. Sheridan found some 15 miles north, still running. They were crushed. Then, Vermont 8th.
Wasn't Sheridan away and he was just arriving?
Sheridan was coming back from Washington.
Yeah.
Sheridan was staying in Winchester. Sheridan had no idea because Horatio Wright was in charge at that time. Horatio Wright thought, there's nothing going on. He was, by the way, he's a little connected to Northfield to Norwich, but he didn't think anything of it. Horatio Wright said, there's nothing going on. There were many soldiers in the Union Army that said something is too quiet and something is going to happen. Now, Early did put some cannon into Belle Grove. 200 soldiers died. That was 3 days before. But they still thought nothing was going to happen. So I'll get to Sheridan in a few moments. So now you've got Corps 8 moving, Corps 19 saying, what's going on? It's fog. Nobody can see anybody. Everybody's shooting everywhere. And they run into the Corps 19. Bricktop, old Bricktop, General Emory, 19th Corps. He says to Stephen Thomas, brigade leader of the Vermont 8th, says, I want you to go in there. I know I'll never see you again. You go in. So he went in. The Vermont 8th? Sorry, guys, for doing this. I keep you guessing, that's all. So there's the Vermont 8th. The Vermont 8th went in and lost 3/4 of their soldiers within no time. They were getting hammered by Stonewall Jackson's old division. They just got totally annihilated. 1,000 soldiers went in, Vermont 8, Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut. They went into a buzzsaw. And Emory knew it. Why did they do that? They did that to slow up the Confederate onslaught. It was intense. So that happens. The 8th comes back. That monument has 4 sides, 1 smooth, 3 rough. 3 rough because one side says 3/4 of their men died. They got attacked from 3 sides, and flag bearers were very important in the Civil War. If you go to the state capitol, you're not allowed to, except I am, maybe you are. We're allowed to go down to the basement and see those flags. Pretty amazing. Get a chance to go see those flags. 3 of the flag bearers were mortally wounded also. It's right up on a hill there. Has anybody seen that monument? Well, you gotta go down. You seen it? Yeah, it's really kind of frightening to see that. But that's what happened. Okay, let's move on because this story still goes. The 6th Corps starts to come in. Oh, thank God we had 6th Corps. Vermont Brigade, whatever. The Confederates keep going, and the 6th Corps goes up onto a cemetery hill. All right, and up a cemetery hill, by the way, there's an auto tour there. It does all this. It's beautiful. Just drive around. They hold the Confederate charge. They have one approach this the cemetery hill. It's repulsed twice. Repulsed. They throw cannons in. Finally, the Vermont Brigade moves back a little bit. What happens with the Vermont Brigade? What happens is pretty amazing. They were up on that hill against all odds. They were next to Bidwell, who was a New Yorker. Goes to the history of Ethan Allen, New Yorkers, goes way back, folks. And Bidwell gets mortally wounded. So French, the army is organized, Colonel, Lieutenant General. So all of a sudden, French comes up, and the soldiers say, what do we do? And what does he say? Don't run until the Vermonters run! It's a famous saying of the Battle of Cedar Creek, okay? And so the Vermonters hang in there. They hang in there a little bit longer, and finally they're repulsed. So you've got 40,000, was probably 6,000 died. You've got 35,000 Union troops in the morning running to north. And you get the Confederates going, you know, we got them on the run. This is really important. Jubal early, like all this kind of stuff's going on. So who comes riding? The motivator guy. Here he is. Now, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So the Confederates move. They get to a point, Jubal Early and J.B. Gordon here, and they say, the Confederates say, let's stop. We've done really well. Let's call this a victory and go home. The Union soldiers thought the same thing. The Union High Command thought the same thing. Everybody thought they're going back. If that battle would have stopped then, and it could have, it would have been an amazing kind of thing. That would have happened. This is them discussing this. Jubal Early says, we're done. One of the main reasons, folks, is the Confederate Army, they didn't have shoes. They've been up all night. They're tired. They're hungry. What did they go through to get there? All the Union tents, all the food, shoes, blankets. A lot of them, not all, big argument, down south for sure, that they were using all the, putting on shoes, eating food and all that stuff, and they were tired. But what was another major reason? Sheridan has 8,000 cavalry members that haven't even hit the battle yet. You got Custer way out here with Vermont 1. You got Merritt way out here. They weren't even in battle yet. And Jubilee like, they're coming around behind us. So they have it's called the Halt, for those of you that would like to learn about controversy. It was very controversial. 40 years later, before J.B. Gordon passed away, he blamed him earlier. Earlier had been dead 10 years. Anyway, so a lot of discussion about it. So that was a turning point. Sheridan comes down, puts his ear in the thing, and he says, we got to do something about this. Sheridan, unbelievably, motivates these soldiers. The soldiers are running. He says, don't do this for me, do this for your country. And he turns them all around. Amos Tracy says, Vermont, and you know what I'm talking about. He says, men, who are you? We're the Vermont Brigade. Okay, we'll be in our tents tonight for dinner. And Sheridan rides up and down in front with his horse and his flag. Rienzi, people thought he's dead, the horse dead. The poem about him is about the dog, about the horse, certainly isn't about him. He runs back and forth and he aligns his troops. He gets them all organized. Horatio Wright and Crook, his buddy, they thought they were going to Wilson and call it a day. We've lost everything. 24 cannon, we've lost 1,000 prisoners, He turns them all around. He rides up and down. The soldiers are going, he's back, he's back. The Union, the Confederates are like, wow, they must have more soldiers. Something's going on here. And no, it was, how much more time? 15? Oh, so what was going on was, now, a remarkable turnaround and a remarkable controversy. If you go to YouTube and oh, I forgot to give Eric Campbell. Eric Campbell's the chief interpreter for Cedar Creek for 15 years from Gettysburg. Eric and I you know, folks, you know, I had time to talk to the Pete Roses. I had time to talk to people that know everything. And if you go to YouTube and go to Eric Campbell and Battle of Cedar Creek, amazing knowledge this gentleman has. So the Union is kind of resetting. The Confederates are like, they're not sure. They do attack the Vermont Brigade over near Middleton. They do attack. It's a little skirmish, if you will. The Union's not really organized. This is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This battle started at 4:30. They're a little bit getting organized. Ramseur, he's trying to cause some commotion, but they can't do anything. On this right side here, you have Custer over here. Evans is playing in the woods over here, and the 19th Corps didn't see them, and they blew up the 19th Corps. 19th Corps starts running. Custer comes through, and he clears them out. He's got 3,000 people on horses, folks, with the best guns in the world. The Confederates have no horses. If they get to go to a barn and say, hey, turn away your horse, honest to God, that's what it was like. The Union had everything. They had everything. And so they moved out. Then unfortunately, over here on this side of Middletown, Ramseur, youngest general of the Confederate Army. All these are all West Point guys, by the way. They're all, youngest general, has a daughter. Hasn't seen his daughter. Has a little white pin on his jacket to see his daughter. And he thought after Cool Springs, he would be able to go see his daughter down in North Carolina. Well, that doesn't happen. He gets mortally wounded in Middletown. So the Confederates now, again, AM, Union, PM, totally the other way. The Confederate Army is running. They're on the run. And the 7,000 cavalry members are just running them down. Over Cedar Creek, there's a bridge, and it gets tied up with wagons and all that kind of stuff. And Fred Line and Sweeney, they're both Vermonters. They both got Medal of Honor for this, and they captured Ramseur in a wagon. And they said, who's in there? So they captured General. They brought him right here, folks, right here. They brought him up the stairs. To the right is the library, first room. They put him there, and he died there. Now, he's a Confederate general. He is real good friends with Merritt, Cavalry Custard, Sheridan, DuPont, Henry DuPont, very good friends. So here they are fighting. At the end of the day, the Union command is trying to save his life. And unfortunately, he doesn't make it, but in that very room right here, in the library there, that's where, his last gasp of air was towards Henry DuPont and said, tell my daughter, that I miss her. And in 1920, they had the Daughters of the Confederacy, they put up a monument right in front of Belle Grove here. It's a long column. It's got cannonballs on top, signifying Ramseur because of his dedication to the Confederate Army. His daughter Mary was there at that dedication, which is pretty kind of cool. Cool, I can say it's cool. But and Henry DuPont, along with many Union generals, spoke of the brilliance of this gentleman, Stephen Dotz Ramseur from North Carolina. So, in the battles, it's too bad that it doesn't happen beforehand, not afterhand, but that actually did occur, and it did actually occur inside this building right here. So that was kind of. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to wrap this up right now. I gave a speech for my daughter who got married 2 weeks ago, a 5-minute speech at Jay Peak, and I told him that Jay Peak was named after John Jay because in 1787 he was the first Chief Justice assigned by George Washington. And that didn't go too well with people, but it didn't matter. But little did I know, my 3 brothers had bets on how much time it would take. I went 18 minutes, and unfortunately, my daughter said we had to pay the DJ longer because you spoke so long, we had to pay him an extra half an hour. So that's what you get when you do things like that. All I gotta say is a couple things. What would have happened if Jubal Early turned and Union would have gone to Winchester? What would have happened? What would have happened for Lincoln's election? Of course, you got to remember, Sherman's down in Atlanta causing a problem. He was not marching to the sea at this time, so you had that battle there. So would Lincoln have won the election? Because probably not, but it might have made a difference. So what would have happened if Sheridan was in the battle in the beginning? He was in Washington, was standing, because they were saying, Sheridan was saying, hey, we're done here in Shenandoah Valley. Where do you want us? You want us in Petersburg? Where do you want us? And Jubal Early was like, oh, no, we're not done. So what would have happened? And last thing to say is what Sheridan said in Montpelier years later. What did he say? Better late than early. Okay, hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Questions? Any questions? Now, yes,
question.
I'm sorry.
Can you speak a little bit more to how they were all at West Point together?
Yeah.
Or which ones were at West Point
Yeah.
together?
By the way, Norwich had about 21.
Or Norwich.
And Norwich had 4 Confederate generals, believe it or not. Confederates, West Point was the largest military. They all went, Custer got, if you had 100 demerits, you're out. Custer got 99 every year. Custer was, and Jubal Early wasn't too far behind. Almost all the major generals were from West Point. Lee was, Longstreet was his best friend. Longstreet, he was at Grant's, now they're fighting against each other. He was best man at Grant's wedding.
Right. They were just amazing.
Yeah.
Interlinkages.
Yeah, and so Longstreet, so the more you learn there, all the graduates. So if you look at Jubal Early, I have it somewhere, but the number of Union generals that he went to school with is amazing.
Yeah.
So personality played into this a little bit.
Yeah.
Even Jackson went there. He went to VMI, but so and then Annapolis had a few, and Citadel had a few, but mostly West Pointers. But Custer was he was a fighter.
And one famous general, very famous general, finished last in his class at West Point.
Who?
Pickett. Oh, Pickett's charge.
Well, let me tell you something about Gettysburg, about Pickett's Church, just a quick story. There is a buffet restaurant in Gettysburg. And if you listen to this, there's some great historians on Gettysburg that are on YouTube. There's one gentleman I really like. He says, we're at Gettysburg. He says, if you go to Pickett's for lunch, charge it.
We're going a mile away.
But Pickett, I did not know that.
Last in his life.
But there, yeah.
Well,
Some people didn't finish very high. Sheridan didn't, but yeah.
Well, all their classes were in Latin.
Well, yeah. The other thing is, if you look at the West Point curriculum, which I had back then, it was not a war school at all. It was an engineering school. And then when battles came out about the Battle of 1812 stuff, they started saying, hey, maybe there's something to this. So it was originally not a war, a battle school. It was, if you look at the curriculum, Ranter's curriculum, which we looked at in that room when we had all day with those people, I looked at the classes that they took, and some of it was on artillery, but most of it could have been French, could have been,
Well, the courses themselves were in a different language.
That probably wasn't
So
good for
that
Union generals.
if you came in at the bottom of your class, it's still probably not such a bad thing. Because this was America. How many, it was an old school European idea of how classwork should be presented. So, yeah, but what I read was
Yeah.
Custer really was a badass.
Michael,
Yes.
when was West Point founded?
When? Thomas Jefferson?
1703.
What was the question again?
Western Jefferson found a war school, or called. Of course, you got to remember, Jefferson was the smartest person in the world besides Ben Franklin. You know, and Jefferson put that together. And I think just after 1803, 14.
I don't have my phone to check it out. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't Google me. Oh, wait till later. This is how Google says, Alexa, when did whatever. Any other questions? A great battle. Ask me another question because I'm here and I don't cost that much. So just I mean, there must be another question about Custer or not, or Sheridan or Belle Grove. How you would like to go down here to the Battle of Cedar Creek? These people are remarkable people. Okay, another question, please. Yes. Thank you.
Where was, what is the point where the painter was standing to paint the?
Oh, great question. Almost everybody thinks it was at the gate. Mine, it was nowhere near there. It was at Cemetery Hill. If you look at it, which I'm not going to take too much time, there's a mountain here, which is Massanutten Mountain, and that's what gives it away. But yeah, it's Cemetery Hill.
I know you could see Massanutten, but
yes.
it was...
And Massanutten is a range right in the center, and Signal Mountain's about 1,800 feet higher, so I've been there a number of times to see scope. It's really a beautiful place. What a place to see all this, the northern part of Shenandoah Valley. Yeah, but yeah, that was Cemetery Hill, and you can see, if you look closely at that picture, and I'm not sure, if you look closely, there's a big boulder on the ground in the front of the picture, and it's split in half, and there's a cannonball there. And according to David Sheets, David told me that he thinks that Scott put that there purposely about how divided the nation was. I don't know if that's for truth. I know the cannonball's there. So if you look closely at that, right in the front. Yeah. And Tim, did I answer any questions? Do you have any more questions about the 8th? I mean, this is exciting to have somebody here that...
I mean, it said he was in the 8 Volunteers, Company F, but there was something else on the bottom of that stone that I unburied when I found it, but it's been since covered up. I've forgotten just what that was, but...
And Tim talks about the companies. So you had your regiments, and then you had companies below that. So companies made up the regiment. And regiments were about 1,000. During the end of the battle, they were about 400. And in this battle here, about 6,000 casualties Union, and about 3,000 casualties Confederates. In almost every battle, we lost, don't say that down south. But down south, we lost half the battle, half the soldiers in almost every battle. But they lost a larger percentage. And that was Appomattox happened. What happened after all these soldiers were here? Jubal Early lost his command. Lee says, sorry, you should have won. What's the matter with you? So he went down Waynesboro, had 1,000 troops or so, and the rest, J.B. Gordon took the whole 2nd Corps, went down to Appomattox, and actually the Vermont Brigade stayed in the Shenandoah Valley through March, and then in April they came over to Appomattox, and so that's where they all came back. And then Sheridan, because of his horse, was the hero. Every Vermont northern school had to recite Reed's poem. It was pretty interesting because it's about the horse. And then his horse's name was changed to Winchester after a while, and then people claimed that they saw his horse, or they didn't see his horse. His horse was dead, and I mean, there's all sorts of stories. And a lot of insurance companies back in the 1800s used that picture of Sheridan riding for brochures for their for selling insurance. So he got a lot of wear of it, and he said he didn't deserve the credit that he was given because he wasn't there. but he turned the whole. I don't know if you ever meet somebody that motivates you like crazy. Sometimes Jerry motivates me a little bit. He scares me a little bit. But when you get motivated, you see Sheridan, you're like, okay, let's go. Let's go. We can do this. And the Vermonters played such an important part of this battle. I've heard there were more regiments here than any other battle, including Gettysburg, which the other Vermont brigade was at Gettysburg. This brigade was not. So, it's an amazing thing amazing battle to Vermonters. And I honestly knew nothing about this the day I took a tour there. I knew nothing about it. And this is Middletown, Virginia, which is 10 miles south of Winchester. That's where this place is. And I would encourage, oh man, learn about the history of the United States.
The sign that was also in the background in the same area, it said it was the last battle of the valley, or?
Yes, valley. It was the last battle in the Shenandoah Valley.
So I have, this is my husband's great-grandfather who was from Milton, Vermont, and he was in the 2nd Regiment, Vermont, Company H. And this is a history of all the battles. He was in quite a few different ones. And one of them was Cedar Creek, Cold
Creek.
Cold Harbor, or whatever, yeah. And so I have, the picture of him. I also have a foot locker with these items in it. I don't know what to do with it.
You know what? Do me a favor. Bring it to the Essex Historical Site, and we'll take a look at it.
Wow.
Seriously.
Oh.
I volunteer there with Jerry and
I live
Jan.
in Essex.
Are you Judy?
What's that?
Are you Judy?
No.
I thought I talked to you for a while.
My name's Judy.
The Vermont 2nd was mustered in Burlington, Vermont.
Okay.
If you go to Battery Park, you'll see Vermont 2nd right there.
Right.
And they took companies from all different towns in this area.
Yeah.
Vermont 2nd was the first regiment in the Vermont Brigade.
Okay.
And they were one of the first regiments for over like a 3-month term. I think there were 9 months or something like that. So the Vermont 2nd played an important role in many battles. The Vermont Brigade lost more soldiers than any brigade in the Civil War. The Vermont Brigade was different than every brigade except for Wisconsin, I think maybe one in Michigan, that they had all of the regiments in the Vermont Brigade. And there was an argument about that. Why would you do that? Because if you lose out, you've lost your whole town, everybody in the community. So let's have different states represent the brigade. Like Thomas's brigade had New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont. So what the Vermont Brigade did was very interesting. They were not going to allow them to do that. So we don't want every regiment from the same state. And Vermont, other than Michigan, per capita had more soldiers in the Civil War than any other state. And when and Howard Coffin's book here is full duty. That comes from Erastus Fairbanks, who was the governor at that time. And when Lincoln asked for that number, Erastus Fairbanks says, Vermont will do its full duty. And not only Vermont gave $500,000, Stephen Thomas, who was born in Bethel, who's buried in Montpelier, he donated another large portion of money so more soldiers could go to the battles, to go into the Civil War. Many of these folks were down in Louisiana, the Vermont 8th. They were down there most of the time. It's remarkable what this state did in its contribution to the Civil War in numbers. And I don't know all the generals from Vermont.
But we'll look them up, and we must say thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, that was a lot of fun. You all, thank you.